Not all of Donald Trump's stooges are created equal. Some are more smug than others, some more disingenuous. But the one who is easiest to hate is Scott Jennings. Now, anyone who watches this show knows that I have a special little fire in my belly, maybe some hate in my heart when I get to talk about Scott Jennings getting shut up and shut down. And that is exactly what happened to him today. And best of all, it was a courtesy of one of our favorite Democrats in Congress, Robert Garcia. We're going to check it all out, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into this takedown of Scott Jennings that left him silent, of course, we need some context on what was being discussed, and that was the illegal deportation of Abrego Garcia. And to break that down with a breaking update was Senator Von Hollen, who is in El Salvador now.
I've had back-to-back meetings here in El Salvador with our team from the American Embassy, with the Vice President of El Salvador, with human rights groups. And the entire purpose has been to bring Abrego Garcia home because U.S. courts have determined that he was illegally abducted from the United States and now finds himself in the most notorious prison in El Salvador. The Supreme Court, 9-0, has told the Trump administration they must facilitate his return home. They've refused to do it. So I called upon the government of El Salvador to do it unless they can provide evidence that he's been involved in MS-13. They said they had no evidence. So this is not about MS-13. I know President Trump wants to make this about gang violence. I have been fighting MS-13 probably longer than Donald Trump even knew about MS-13. I care about every victim of crime. That's why we have a court system to hold people accountable when they commit crimes, to make sure that they get the punishment they deserve. We also have a court system to make sure that people who have not committed crimes or not been convicted of crimes are not disappeared out of the United States and sent to a notorious prison in El Salvador, like Abrego Garcia. This is simply about letting him have his day in court.
We cannot allow the Trump administration to push their false narrative that Abrego Garcia is an MS-13 gang member or they had any justification whatsoever to illegally send him to El Salvador. We have to make clear that what happened is not only immoral, it is wrong, and it is in defiance of the Supreme Court. And it was that exact point that left Scott Jennings so silent when Robert Garcia shut him down right here.
First of all, I'm more than happy to hear the congressman say they're all going to El Salvador. I think for Republicans, this just confirms what we have believed about the Democratic Party and why it currently has a 21% approval rating in Congress. Look where the energy in the Democratic Party is. It's around retrieving illegal aliens from El Salvador. It's around fighting for these college campuses that have been rife with anti-Semitism. It's around biological males who want to play in girls' sports. This is why they are losing to Donald Trump every day, because the energy that Democrats feel comes on all these issues that are fundamentally not where the American people are.
Congressman, one second. Congressman, can I give you the chance to respond to that?
Donald Trump. Yeah, I mean, it's Donald Trump that's actually losing the support of the American people. Donald Trump's not focused on lowering the costs of housing, not focused on lowering the price of goods. He's out there deporting people that have legal status to be here, revoking student visas from students that are contributing to this country.
He doesn't have legal status to be here, Congressman. He has a deportation order. You're going to go to El Salvador. You're going to go to maybe go to the grocery store. Like, there's an issue here where you could possibly win on, but you're going to El Salvador instead.
It's okay that someone walking into getting their citizenship, walking into their citizenship test, their citizenship meeting, is being apprehended on the way into their next process, which just happened to somebody in Vermont, and it's happening now across the country. Students are being deported and revoked of their student visas. Yes. Many are not being told why that's the case. That should not be happening in the United States. And certainly someone shouldn't be deported and being left in a prison in a foreign country when the Supreme Court says it should be returned back. And so those are the questions. And by the way, as Democrats and as a Congress and a government, we should be able to do multiple things at the same time. We should be able to take on billionaires who are raiding the government. We should be able to take on Elon Musk, who has no business being in charge of Doge. And yes, protecting the civil rights and human rights of people that are in this country and entrusted to us. And so, yes, Scott, we can do all of those things. And it's Donald Trump who's actually defined the Supreme Court and whose numbers are going down.
Kate Bedingfield. I would also just say to your the energy from Democrats on these issues, let's also look at the elections that have taken place since November of 2024. You've seen the Republican agenda start to be rejected. You saw it rejected in Wisconsin, where Elon Musk was at the center of the race there. You saw Democrats with an enormous amount of energy and independents with an enormous amount of energy come out and reject the agenda. So, I think let's look at where the electoral voice of Americans has been since Trump was elected.
Can I ask the Congressman one question? Do you believe that Garcia should come back to the United States and be allowed to live here indefinitely?
I think that Garcia is allowed to due process. That's what I believe.
Do you think he should be able to stay in the United States indefinitely, or would you support him being sent to another country?
What I would support is for him to be able to have due process in this country, which he's being denied of right now.
So I'm a little confused on the argument that Scott Jennings was trying to make there. Clearly, Robert Garcia was too, but he just had to push through and call him out. Scott Jennings is suggesting that we don't talk about the constitutional crisis or the violation of a man's human rights because instead it's more important for Democrats to talk about grocery prices. Now, sure, I agree. Either issue is a winning one for us because, as we've seen in recent polling, Donald Trump's immigration plan, his illegal deportation plan, is incredibly unpopular. So no matter what we're talking about, we're winning. But why would Scott Jennings suggest we talk about the failures of Donald Trump to do the one thing he promised to, lower prices? Is he trying to help us? Is Scott Jennings like a secret Democrat? Is that what's going on here? He really does paint a pretty annoying and smug image for the right. I've talked about this with a lot of people that we need to create a better stereotype of what a Republican is. It's just someone who talks down to you, someone who's smug and disingenuous, just like J.D. Vance, and Scott Jennings fits that profile as well. Just a liar, just someone you would not want to spend your time around because of the lies that he pushes. Of course, right now we're talking about those relating to Abrego Garcia, and all of those lies were called out, of course, by Robert Garcia, but as well by our good friend, Chris Hayes, right here.
This entire undertaking by the Trump administration is itself illegal, insanely, flagrantly lawless, and rotten to its core, and it has been from the start. So let's remember how this all started. To begin with, right? The White House kicked off this deportation and renditioning scheme by invoking a little-known 200-year-old law, the Alien Enemies Act, as justification. And to be clear, prior to this administration, that law, the Alien Enemies Act, had only been invoked 3 times before. The War of 1812, when the Brits were here and burning down the White House, World War I, where tens of thousands were dying in the trenches, and World War II. Most infamously, it was used as the justification for Japanese internment camps during the Second World War, one of the most shameful periods of this country's history. But all 3 times this act was invoked, the United States was actually and undeniably at war, right? But in order to create some justification to start this bizarre and appalling spectacle, right, to kick legal residents out of the country, no due process, the White House just decided to pretend like we're at war again. We're at war with Venezuela. Okay, are we? But also, just to be specific, not just Venezuela, we're at war with this one specific gang, Tren de Aragua, which most Americans have never actually heard of. Again, I'm reading from Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organization with thousands of members, many whom have unlawfully infiltrated the U.S. and are conducting irregular warfare and undertaking hostile actions against the United States. The gang is closely aligned with and indeed has infiltrated the Maduro regime, including its military and law enforcement apparatus. So first things first, it's a lie. They're conducting irregular warfare. This is like Al-Qaeda being here or something. Tren de Aragua is not an arm of Maduro's government. Trump's own experts privately admit as much. The New York Times reported on an assessment from U.S. intelligence agencies, which, quote, concluded the gang was not directed by Venezuela's government or committing crimes in the United States on its orders. So again, it's a lie. It's a lie they know from inside, from their own intelligence assessment. It's on par with George W. Bush's administration's lies about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But also, and I really can't stress this enough, we're not at war with Venezuela. It's ludicrous to say we are. Not only are we not at war, but the gang they've identified as a foreign terrorist organization being directed by a foreign government is not actually being directed by that government. And they know all this, okay? But then on top of this, they use these foundational lies to give them the power to snatch people off the street because of their tattoos, which they have decided mark them as soldiers in the war they've made up out of whole cloth. Like the gay makeup artist with crown tattoos, or the man with an autism awareness tattoo in tribute to his little brother with autism, or the singer and father of a newborn child with a hummingbird inked on his neck. One guy went so far as to get a declaration from his tattoo artist confirming his tattoos, including a rose, were not gang-related. The kicker to all of this is that according to the journalist who literally wrote the book on Tren de Aragua, quote, Venezuelan gangs are not identified by tattoos. To be a member of one of these Venezuelan organizations, you don't need a tattoo. So on top of the lies and the absurdities, this war they've invented that doesn't exist, the power the government says they say has but doesn't have, they're using something to target people that has nothing to do whatsoever with the deadly menace they themselves cite as the pretext for the whole thing. It's all made up, all of it, from scratch. And again, to step back, the tattoos are not the issue. It doesn't even matter if they are in the gang. There are dangerous gangs in Venezuela and in South America. They do really awful stuff. Totally stipulated. Okay? Arresting people without probable cause, and then not just deporting them to a country to be a free citizen there, which is what normally happens in deportation, shipping them out of the country without due process to a horrifying prison they can never get out of in a country many of them have never been to is tyranny.
We cannot allow Donald Trump's administration to get away with the disgusting lies that they are pushing to attempt to cover up the constitutional crisis that we are in. We saw them bring in the mother of a woman who lost her life to an MS-13 gang member to tell a very tragic story, but a story that is not related to this current situation. They do not care about people who are actually impacted. That's the whole point. If they did, there would be due process. If they did, they would be working for a more secure border, one that could have come about from a bipartisan border deal we remember being introduced and killed by Donald Trump last year. They want to run on the issue. They want to abuse our democracy with it. They want it to be the reason that Donald Trump can consolidate as much power as possible. We cannot allow that to happen. They will not be able to do so if we make it as unpopular as it should be. So we have to work to do that messaging. We're doing it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.